The Great Pyramid of Giza shares a secret with the smartphone in your pocket. This video uncovers the 22 most unexpected connections between ancient ruins and modern technology, links that will shatter your understanding of progress. You will discover how engineering principles lost for centuries are suddenly reappearing in today's most advanced devices. How could a 2,000-year-old Roman harbor hold the key to self-healing materials? And why are modern computer chips cooled using methods from Mesopotamian farms? By the end, your view of history and innovation will be permanently altered. What forgotten wisdom from the past most surprises you about our technological present? The stones of Machu Picchu were placed with a celestial precision that modern science is only beginning to decode. High in the Andes, the ancient Inca engineered their sacred city to function as a giant solar calendar. Windows and pillars were positioned to catch the first and last rays of the sun during the solstices, framing the light with breathtaking accuracy. This was not merely symbolic. It was a highly practical system for marking the seasons, managing agriculture, and harnessing the sun's power. A similar genius is found in Ireland's Newgrange, a tomb older than the pyramids, where a narrow roof box channels a beam of sunlight to illuminate an inner chamber solely on the winter solstice. For millennia, we viewed these alignments as purely ritualistic. Now we see them as masterclasses in solar efficiency. Photovoltaic engineers studying these sites have discovered that the optimal angles for capturing sunlight, as determined by ancient builders, align almost perfectly with the calculations of our most advanced solar tracking algorithms. The ancient understanding of the sun's changing path across the seasons, etched into granite and earth, provides a time-tested blueprint. We are now applying that same celestial knowledge, using software to tilt and turn modern solar panels throughout the day and year, mirroring the passive intelligence of these ruins to maximize energy yield. It seems our quest for renewable energy is being guided by a 5,000-year-old sun manual. This deep reverence for celestial patterns points toward another sophisticated form of ancient energy management, one found not in the sky but deep within the earth. Beneath the streets of ancient Rome flowed the lifeblood of an empire, channeled with an ingenuity that our modern cities are only now relearning. The Roman aqueducts were not merely stone channels, they were masterpieces of gravitational engineering, moving millions of gallons of water daily across impossible distances without a single pump. Their builders achieved this with an almost supernatural grasp of hydrology, calculating gradients so precise that water flowed at a constant, self-cleaning pace. They incorporated sedimentation tanks to let impurities settle and used siphon systems to navigate deep valleys, all to ensure a clean, reliable supply reached the bustling metropolis. This was a smart water grid, engineered 2,000 years before the term was ever coined. Today, civil engineers confronting aging infrastructure and water scarcity are looking back to this Roman blueprint. The specific slope of an aqueduct channel, designed to prevent stagnant water and mineral buildup, is being replicated in modern pipes to reduce the energy needed for maintenance and pumping. The Roman understanding of pressure regulation through complex siphon mechanics is informing the design of resilient urban water systems, especially in regions facing the extreme droughts and floods of a changing climate. It is a profound connection where ancient stone and mortar hold solutions for our most pressing modern problems. This mastery of controlling a physical flow, of guiding water with such precision, finds a direct and startling parallel in the way we now manage another vital resource, the endless flow of digital information. That same genius for guiding water through channels perfected in the deserts of antiquity is now keeping the heart of our digital world from melting down. In the Fertile Crescent, ancient Mesopotamian engineers faced a relentless enemy, the scorching sun that threatened to bake their crops into dust. Their solution was an elaborate network of irrigation canals, a labyrinth of waterways designed to do more than just deliver water. They had to control its flow, distributing it evenly across vast fields while preventing destructive flooding. This required a deep, intuitive understanding of fluid dynamics, of how water moves, pressures change, and heat is carried away. They were, in essence, managing thermal energy on a landscape scale, using flowing water to regulate the temperature of their farmlands and ensure survival. Thousands of years later, inside a high-performance computer chip, engineers face an almost identical challenge. A modern processor generates intense, concentrated heat, a digital desert that can cause catastrophic failure if not managed. The solution, pioneered by companies pushing the limits of computing, is microfluidic cooling. Etched onto the chips themselves are networks of tiny channels, a microscopic mirror of those Mesopotamian canals. A coolant fluid is pumped through these passages, absorbing the intense thermal energy and carrying it away, preventing the silicon from overheating. The fundamental principle is unchanged, controlling a liquid's flow to manage temperature. The scale is unimaginably different, from canals wide enough for a person to walk beside, to channels smaller than a human hair, yet the physics of heat dissipation remain the same. This is the universal language of thermal management, first spoken by farmers in the Fertile Valley, and now whispered by the servers that power our cloud. This ancient art of preserving the function of a system, whether a field of grain or a field of data, finds a parallel in another, even more enduring ancient practice, the preservation of information itself. Long before the invention of paper or hard drives, the Inca Empire managed its vast territories with a data storage system made of string and knots. The Quipu was a complex tapestry of colored cords, where each knot's type, position, and sequence held specific meaning. This was not simple record-keeping. It was a three-dimensional language, a tactile database encoding everything from population censuses and tax records to intricate historical narratives. The system operated on a logic that feels strangely familiar today. Just as modern computers use the binary states of 0 and 1 to represent all information, the Quipu used the presence or absence of a knot, its positional value on a string, and the color of the cord to create a rich, multi-layered code. It was an early, brilliant form of non-linear data storage, where information was not confined to a single line of text but existed in a web of relationships. Computer scientists and data archivists are now looking closely at this ancient system for inspiration. Our current digital databases are often rigid and linear, storing information in sequential tables that can be inefficient for complex, interconnected data. The Quipu structure, by contrast, was inherently relational and multi-dimensional, allowing for a more intuitive mapping of complex information. Researchers are exploring how these principles could lead to new database architectures that are more resilient to corruption and better at handling the messy, interconnected nature of real-world information, from social networks to global supply chains. The drive to preserve knowledge is a human constant, but the methods evolve from knotted cords to silicon chips. This ancient impulse to build systems that endure leads us directly to the most enduring structures of all, the monumental ruins that have withstood the test of time through their own unique form of structural intelligence. The same structural genius that kept medieval cathedrals from collapsing is now engineered into the steel frames of our tallest skyscrapers. Gothic architects faced a seemingly impossible challenge. They wanted to build walls of breathtaking height, walls that were mostly empty space filled with colossal stained glass windows. The sheer weight of the stone roof pushed outward, threatening to topple the walls. Their brilliant solution was the flying buttress, an external stone arm that reached out from the main structure. This arm caught the outward thrust of the roof and channeled it down into the ground, effectively creating an external skeleton. It was a masterclass in redirecting force, turning a building's own weight against itself to achieve stability and grace. Today's skyscraper engineers confront a different but related enemy, not gravity's downward pull, but the invisible, shifting pressure of the wind. A tall, flexible building can sway dangerously in high winds, causing discomfort for occupants and potential structural fatigue. The modern answer is a system directly inspired by that Gothic logic: externalized bracing and tuned mass dampers. These are the technological descendants of the flying buttress. Instead of stone arms, massive steel braces are often visible on a building's exterior, creating a rigid triangulated frame that resists lateral forces. And deep within the pinnacle of a skyscraper, a colossal pendulum, a tuned mass damper, swings in opposition to the building's sway, counteracting the wind's energy just as a buttress counteracted gravity's thrust. The principle is identical, using an external or secondary system to manage and redistribute powerful forces, allowing the main structure to achieve heights once thought unreachable. The quest to build ever higher connects the master masons of Notre Dame with the structural engineers of Taipei 101, a continuous conversation in stone and steel about how to defy the elements. This ancient understanding of working with the land rather than against it finds a different kind of expression in the very materials we use to build. Moving a 300-ton stone needle across the desert seems like a task for giants, yet the ancient Egyptians accomplished it with nothing but ropes, wood, and profound intelligence. Their obelisks, monolithic symbols of power, were quarried from a single piece of granite and then transported hundreds of miles to their final destinations. This was not a feat of brute force, but a meticulously choreographed ballet of logistics. They would place the colossal stone on a massive wooden sledge, then pour water onto the sand in front of it, transforming the friction from a grinding halt into a manageable slide. Teams of laborers pulling in perfect unison would then guide the sledge to the Nile, where it was carefully loaded onto a specially built barge for its river journey. Every step was a calculated risk, a problem in distributed weight and friction reduction, solved millennia before the equations were formally written. The modern challenge of moving a 200-ton electrical transformer across a state, or a massive wind turbine blade along a winding mountain road, is fundamentally the same puzzle. Today's engineers studying ancient reliefs and texts have adopted the core principles of those Egyptian overseers. They use multi-axle transporters with dozens of wheels to distribute the immense weight, just as the wide sledges did. They plan routes with the precision of a river voyage, navigating infrastructural bottlenecks. The coordination required among pilots, traffic control, and ground crews echoes the rhythmic chant that once guided the pullers of the sledge. The physics of moving a massive, fragile object have not changed, only the tools we use to master them. This ancient mastery over colossal physical movement finds a strange and beautiful echo in the microscopic world, within the very device you might be using to watch this. The intricate dance of bronze gears within the Antikythera mechanism represents a conceptual leap that would not be matched for over 1,000 years. Recovered from a 2,000-year-old shipwreck, this ancient Greek device was far more than a simple clock. It was a portable, hand-cranked cosmos made of metal. Its dozens of interlocking gears calculated the movements of the sun, the moon, and the planets, predicted eclipses, and even accounted for the irregular orbit of the moon with a sophistication that stuns modern engineers. At its heart was a brilliant arrangement known as a differential gear, a system that allows two different rotational speeds to be reconciled into a single, accurate output. For centuries, we believed this technology was an invention of the 16th century, yet here it was, functioning perfectly in a device from the age of the Roman Republic. The craftsmen who built it had no precision lathes or computer-aided designs, only their profound understanding of geometry, astronomy, and metallurgy, painstakingly translating cosmic cycles into a symphony of interlocking teeth. This same principle of precision gear trains, of using perfectly calculated ratios to translate motion and track time, is the very soul of a modern mechanical watch. The tiny, jeweled gears inside a luxury timepiece, each one cut to microscopic tolerances, are the direct descendants of those bronze wheels from the Aegean Sea. Horologists and mechanical engineers now study the Antikythera mechanism not as a historical curiosity, but as a source of inspiration for new approaches to miniaturization and robust mechanical computation, proving that the path to high technology is not always a straight line. This ancient mastery of calculating physical cycles through intricate machinery points toward another, even more fundamental form of ancient calculation, one that did not rely on metal at all, but on the arrangement of stones in a desert. The Caracol Observatory at Chichen Itza stands as a silent, spiraling monument to a timeless human obsession, tracking the clockwork of the heavens. Its narrow, strategically placed windows were not just architectural features, they were precision instruments framing the cyclical dance of Venus across the night sky. Generations of Mayan astronomers meticulously recorded its appearances and disappearances, compiling data over lifetimes to create calendars of staggering accuracy that could predict planetary movements for centuries into the future. This was not myth, it was hard, empirical science, built on the relentless accumulation of observational data. Today, our most advanced satellite networks operate on the very same foundational principle. Before a GPS or weather satellite can be trusted, its orbital path must be constantly verified and refined. How is this done? Astrophysicists use a global network of ground-based observatories, peering up at our artificial stars to track their precise positions, calibrating their orbits against the fixed backdrop of the real cosmos. It is the same methodology the Mayans perfected, using a fixed point on the ground to understand the motion of an object in the sky. The persistent, long-term data collection that allowed the Mayans to map the 584-day cycle of Venus is what now allows our satellites to maintain the global positioning system that guides your car or the weather models that predict a storm. The ancient sky watchers understood that true knowledge comes not from a single glance, but from a patient, multi-generational vigil, a legacy now embedded in the silent, precise orbits that connect our modern world. This profound understanding of the physical world, gleaned from generations of looking up, is mirrored by an equally sophisticated knowledge gained from looking down at the very earth beneath our feet. The secret to the Colosseum's endurance was not just in its grand arches, but in the very chemistry of its mortar. While our modern concrete often crumbles after a few decades, Roman piers submerged in the Mediterranean for 2,000 years have emerged stronger, their surfaces fused with minerals from the sea. The mystery lay dormant until scientists analyzed the concrete at a microscopic level. They discovered tiny, white chunks of lime scattered throughout the mix, a feature long considered a sign of poor mixing in modern recipes. For the Romans, it was a deliberate masterstroke. When seawater seeps into a crack, it reacts with these lime clasts, triggering a chemical cascade that forms new crystalline structures, effectively healing the fracture from the inside out. This is a material with a built-in immune system, constantly repairing itself against the ravages of time and tide. Today, material scientists are in a race to bottle this ancient magic. They are creating what are known as biomimetic concretes, inspired by the Roman recipe. Instead of lime clasts, they embed microscopic capsules filled with healing agents like polymers or bacteria into the wet concrete mix. When a crack forms and breaches these capsules, the released substance hardens, autonomously sealing the breach just as the Roman concrete did. This is a profound shift in philosophy, from building structures that resist damage to creating materials that actively heal from it, much like a tree forming a callus over a wound. The Romans, through empirical genius, achieved a form of nanotechnology long before the concept existed, engineering a material that could sustain itself for millennia. Their understanding of material longevity forces us to reconsider not just how we build, but the entire life cycle of our creations. This ancient wisdom for creating enduring systems extends beyond inert materials to the very way entire societies manage their most vital resource, the land itself. The same principle that cooled Persian palaces for free is now being rediscovered by architects fighting climate change. In the arid heart of ancient Persia, survival depended on a hidden marvel of engineering, the Qanat. These were not simple wells, but vast, hand-dug subterranean canals that sloped with a breathtakingly gentle gradient, tapping into mountain aquifers and guiding water for miles to the scorching surface. Yet this system delivered more than just water. The Qanat itself became a natural air conditioner. As air moved through these deep, dark tunnels, it was cooled by the Earth's constant, stable temperature and by the evaporation from the flowing water. This chilled air would then be drawn up into the buildings above, creating refreshingly cool interiors even during the most brutal summer heat. It was a completely passive system, harnessing the geothermal properties of the planet itself to create comfort without any energy input whatsoever. Today, this ancient wisdom is the foundation of a modern sustainable architecture movement. Engineers are designing buildings with what they call earth tubes, or ground-coupled heat exchangers. These are networks of pipes buried deep underground through which outside air is drawn. Just as in the Qanat, the air is naturally cooled by the surrounding earth in the summer and warmed in the winter before it ever enters the building's ventilation system. This dramatically reduces the load on conventional air conditioning and heating, slashing energy consumption and carbon emissions. The Persian mastery of subterranean engineering was, in effect, an early and brilliant form of geothermal climate control. They understood how to work with the Earth's own thermal battery, a lesson we are now urgently relearning as we seek to build a more resilient future. From these underground networks that shaped entire settlements, we can see how ancient planners orchestrated life on a much grander scale. Walking through the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro feels like stepping into a blueprint for modern life. This ancient metropolis, thriving over 4,000 years ago, was laid out with a precision that rivals any contemporary urban development. Its streets ran in perfect right angles, forming a grid system that maximized space and facilitated movement. Every brick in the city adhered to a standardized ratio, a uniformity that speaks to a centralized, systematic vision for urban order. But the true genius was hidden beneath the streets, in a network of covered drains and chutes that connected every home to a central sewage system, ensuring waste was efficiently carried away from the populated areas. This was not a haphazard settlement. It was a master-planned ecosystem designed for the health and efficiency of its tens of thousands of residents. Today, the architects of so-called smart cities are looking back to this Indus Valley prototype. The core challenges of dense urban living have not changed: how to move people and goods, how to deliver clean water, and how to manage waste without creating chaos or disease. Modern planners are applying Mohenjo-Daro's principles of modular design and predictable grid layouts to ease traffic congestion and enable efficient public transit. They are studying its gravity-fed water distribution and advanced drainage to design resilient infrastructure that can withstand floods and prevent waterborne illnesses. The ancient city proves that a sustainable urban environment is not solely about advanced technology, but about intelligent, forward-thinking organization. This systematic approach to structuring a physical community, where every element has its place and function, finds a direct parallel in the way we now build and manage our vast digital communities online. The flawless acoustics of an ancient Greek theater are a mystery carved in stone. At the legendary theater of Epidaurus, an actor's unamplified whisper on the stage can be heard with perfect clarity by a spectator seated in the very last row, over 100 feet away. This was not a happy accident, but the result of a profound, almost instinctive grasp of wave physics. The Greeks sculpted the seating area with a precise, mathematically calculated curvature. Each limestone seat row acted not just as a seat, but as a finely tuned acoustic filter, naturally absorbing the low-frequency rumble of the crowd while reflecting the high-frequency sounds of the human voice back towards the audience. The very texture and placement of the stone material were engineered to diffuse sound waves evenly, preventing harsh echoes and creating a uniform auditory experience for thousands. Modern acoustic engineers, armed with sophisticated computer modeling software, have only recently decoded the full genius of this design. They have discovered that the specific angles and stepped profile of the seating create a phenomenon known as virtual sources, where sound reflections arrive at the listener's ear in such a way that they reinforce the original sound rather than muddying it. This ancient principle is now being directly applied in the design of world-class concert halls and lecture auditoriums. Architects use these digital models to shape the interior surfaces of a hall, calculating the exact angles needed to bounce sound off walls and ceilings to reach every seat with the same pristine clarity enjoyed by an ancient Athenian audience. It is a direct technological inheritance where the mathematical intuition of the Greeks is now executed with silicon precision, proving that the best sound design is sometimes 2,000 years old. This ancient mastery of manipulating waves of sound to guide a collective experience finds a direct parallel in the way we now manipulate waves of light to guide information across the globe. A single golden tessera in a Byzantine mosaic holds no meaning on its own. It is merely a tiny, glittering fragment of colored glass or stone. Yet when an artisan placed it alongside thousands of others, each one deliberately chosen for its hue and angle, these fragments coalesced into a divine face or a heavenly scene that seemed to shimmer with life. The mosaics of Hagia Sophia are not continuous paintings. They are vast arrays of discrete physical units, each one a minuscule dot of pure color. Step close, and the image dissolves into abstraction, a field of individual squares. Step back, and your brain performs a miracle, blending these distinct points into a coherent, luminous whole with astonishing depth and vibrancy. This is the exact same principle that illuminates the screen you are looking at right now. A digital image is composed of pixels, the smallest controllable element of a picture on a display. Each pixel is a tiny square of colored light, and from a distance, your mind blends these millions of colored dots into the seamless photograph or video you perceive. The Byzantine artisan and the modern computer engineer arrived at the same solution across 15 centuries, both understanding that the human visual system is a master at assembling fragments into a whole. Today, researchers in computer graphics are looking back at these ancient mosaics with newfound respect. They are studying how the strategic placement of a dark blue tessera next to a gold one could create the illusion of shadow and fabric fold, or how alternating colors could achieve optical mixing, where the eye perceives a third, more complex color from a distance. These are not just artistic tricks, they are algorithms for visual perception coded in stone and glass. By understanding how these ancient craftsmen tricked the human brain into seeing continuous tone and depth, programmers can develop better digital rendering techniques and more efficient image compression. The JPEG that loads quickly on your phone relies on knowing which visual information your brain will fill in on its own, a form of perceptual efficiency that Byzantine Mosaicists perfected in their own medium. This reveals a profound truth about how we see. Our minds are wired to assemble reality from discrete pieces, whether the source is a hand-set tessera or a glowing pixel. A dry stone wall in the Scottish Highlands stands for centuries without a drop of mortar. Its strength lies in its deliberate imperfection, a carefully curated chaos where each stone is chosen not for a uniform shape, but for how its unique contours lock perfectly with its neighbors. This is not a rigid, monolithic structure, it is a dynamic, interlocking system. When the ground shakes during an earthquake, a concrete wall, brittle and unyielding, is likely to crack and crumble. But a dry stone wall simply flexes. The stones shift and settle, absorbing the seismic energy through friction and redistribution, then settle back into a new, stable configuration. For millennia, this was seen as rustic craft. Today, we recognize it as a masterclass in applied physics. The ancient waller intuitively understood force vectors, the directional push of weight, and complex friction coefficients, choosing stones that would create a stable, self-locking geometry. Modern computational engineers are now using powerful algorithms to deconstruct this ancient wisdom. They create intricate digital simulations, a process known as discrete element modeling, where every single stone in a virtual wall is an independent entity with its own properties of weight, shape, and friction. By simulating earthquakes on these digital walls, they can observe exactly how forces cascade through the network of stones, identifying the key geometric principles that grant such resilience. This is more than just historical curiosity. It is a new frontier in seismic design. The insight is leading to revolutionary construction techniques where structures are designed to have controlled flexibility, to sway and absorb energy like a dry stone wall, rather than fight against it with rigid and ultimately fragile strength. The algorithms are revealing that the intelligence locked within these ancient walls was a form of natural computation, a physical algorithm for survival written in stone. This same drive to encode complex information into physical systems connects directly to an even more ambitious ancient project, one that sought to map the entire cosmos onto the surface of a single, enigmatic artifact. The landscapes of Australia were once traversed using maps that were not drawn on parchment, but sung in ceremony. For tens of thousands of years, Aboriginal cultures have navigated the vast, featureless deserts and dense coastal regions through songlines, intricate pathways of knowledge woven into the very fabric of their songs, stories, and art. A single songline is a living atlas where every lyric describes a specific landmark, a water source, a particular type of tree, or a rock formation. The rhythm and cadence of the song mirror the actual topography of the journey, its tempo changing with the terrain. This was far more than a way to avoid getting lost. It was a multidimensional database that embedded not just location, but also the history, ecology, and sacred lore of the land. The location of a seasonal berry patch, the story of an ancestral creator being, and the rules for sustainable hunting were all layered into this oral, melodic guide. It is a system where cultural memory becomes a precise navigational tool, a form of collective intelligence passed down through generations. Modern geographic information systems, the digital maps that power everything from your phone's navigation to global climate models, operate on a startlingly similar principle. A GIS is not a single map, but a stack of transparent layers of information all aligned to the same spatial coordinates. One layer might show roads, another satellite imagery, a third population density, and a fourth historical sites. The true power emerges when these layers are combined, allowing a user to see hidden relationships, such as how ancient trade routes correlate with modern water sources. Anthropologists and cartographers are now working with Aboriginal elders to translate songlines into these digital systems. They are discovering that the ancient songs represent an incredibly sophisticated and holistic form of data integration, where no piece of information exists in isolation. This collaboration is revealing that our modern, often sterile, digital maps are missing a vital dimension: the deep, qualitative knowledge of how a place feels and what it means to the people who belong to it. The goal is not to replace the songline, but to learn from its structure to create more respectful and comprehensive mapping technologies that honor the living memory of the land. This profound connection demonstrates that the most advanced cartography might not require a satellite but a story. The human drive to map our surroundings, whether in song or in silicon, is rivaled only by our ancient obsession with mapping time itself. Stonehenge stands as a silent, algorithmic engine built from sarsen and bluestone. Its massive trilithons and carefully placed heel stone were not arranged for ritual alone, but to function as a colossal calendar, locking the sun and moon into a predictable, stone-framed dance. The structure could mark the solstices with a beam of light, track the more complex 19-year cycle of the moon, and even predict eclipses. This was a physical system for processing celestial data, where the positions of the architectural elements served as fixed variables in a formula that calculated the passage of time itself. The builders had, in effect, hard-coded astronomical patterns into the very landscape. Modern digital calendars and global scheduling systems operate on the same foundational principle, just with silicon instead of stone. The software that manages international stock market openings, coordinates satellite launches, and syncs your appointments across time zones relies on complex algorithms that model the Earth's rotation and orbital path. These algorithms are the digital descendants of Stonehenge's stone code, translating the messy, continuous flow of cosmic time into discrete, manageable units that our societies can run on. Computer scientists see the monument not as a mystery, but as an early and brilliant form of compiled software, where the program was written in megaliths instead of machine code. The universal human need to quantify time, to break its infinite flow into predictable chunks for agriculture, commerce, and ceremony, connects the Neolithic astronomer to the modern programmer. This relentless drive to measure the heavens for practical purpose finds its mirror image in an equally ancient drive to measure the Earth. The Great Pyramid's northern face aligns with true north with an error of just 1/15 of a degree, a precision that seems impossible for a civilization without lasers or satellites. This astonishing accuracy was the work of the Harpedonapti, the ancient Egyptian rope stretchers. These master surveyors did not use advanced instruments, they used knotted ropes, wooden stakes, and the stars themselves. To establish a perfect north-south line, they would track the circular path of a single star around the celestial pole, marking its highest and lowest points on the horizon. The midpoint between these two marks gave them an unwavering true north. For creating perfect right angles over vast distances, they employed a simple rope divided into 12 equal segments. By stretching it to form a triangle with sides of 3, 4, and 5 units, They harnessed the Pythagorean theorem thousands of years before Pythagoras was born, guaranteeing a perfect 90-degree angle every single time. Modern GPS land surveying, for all its orbiting satellites and atomic clocks, is built upon this same geometric bedrock. When a surveyor today uses a receiver to pinpoint a property boundary, the system is calculating positions through a process of triangulation, using signals from multiple satellites as fixed points in the sky, much like the Egyptian surveyors used the fixed stars. The core challenge remains identical, establishing a reliable, universally agreed upon coordinate system on the surface of the Earth. Geodesy researchers now see the rope stretchers not as primitive technicians, but as the founders of their entire field, the science of measuring the Earth. Their empirical grasp of spherical geometry and error correction over long baselines laid the conceptual groundwork for every map that followed. This ancient drive to impose geometric order upon the land reveals a deep understanding of stable foundations, a principle that would be tested to its limits by the very ground beneath their feet. An ornate bronze vessel from 2nd century China held a secret that could sense the fury of the Earth from hundreds of miles away. Zhang Heng's Seismoscope was a masterpiece of both art and science, featuring 8 dragons, each holding a bronze ball above the mouths of 8 corresponding toads. When an earthquake occurred, an internal, inverted pendulum-like mechanism would sway with the seismic waves, triggering a lever that would release a single ball from a dragon's mouth into the toad below. This not only indicated the direction of the quake, but proved that ground tremors could be mechanically detected and measured, even when the earthquake itself was too distant to be felt by people at the device's location. It was the world's first functional seismometer, a stunningly prescient invention that demonstrated a deep, intuitive grasp of how energy propagates through the ground. The core physics at the heart of this ancient device is identical to that inside a modern broadband seismometer. Today's instruments also rely on the principle of inertia, where a suspended mass remains relatively still while the ground and the instrument's frame move around it during an earthquake. The sophisticated electronics then measure this relative motion with extreme sensitivity, converting the Earth's vibrations into digital data. Zhang Heng's genius was in creating a mechanical system that achieved the same fundamental detection, translating subtle ground movements into an unambiguous, actionable signal. This ancient drive to get a mechanical warning, to have even a few moments of anticipation before the ground itself betrayed you, is the very soul of our modern earthquake early warning networks. These systems rely on dense arrays of seismometers detecting the fast-moving, but less damaging, P waves that precede the destructive S waves of a major quake. That initial detection triggers automated alerts to cities in the quake's path, providing precious seconds to stop trains, shut down gas lines, and allow people to take cover. The goal is unchanged from the Han Dynasty, to transform raw seismic energy into a life-saving message. The enduring quest to build instruments that can listen to the whispers of the planet connects that ancient bronze vessel directly to the digital nerve endings we have spread across fault lines today. This ancient understanding of detecting waves that move through the Earth finds a perfect parallel in our modern efforts to detect and harness the waves that move through water. Descending into a stepwell is like walking into the Earth's own cathedral for water. These magnificent structures, carved deep into the Indian subcontinent, were far more than just ornate staircases leading to a well. They were sophisticated hydrological engines designed with a profound understanding of evaporation, groundwater recharge, and community. Their intricate, cascading steps exposed a vast surface area of water to the cool, shaded air deep below ground level, dramatically reducing loss to the sun and wind. This was a passive, brilliant form of conservation, Furthermore, the architecture itself created a unique microclimate, where the temperature difference between the top and bottom of the well encouraged air circulation, helping to keep the water fresh and preventing stagnation. The entire structure was a filter, with sand and gravel layers naturally purifying the water as it percolated into the reservoir. Modern hydrologists and urban planners are now looking at these ancient blueprints with a sense of urgency. In regions facing severe water scarcity, the principles of the stepwell are being reborn. New reservoir designs are incorporating stepped, shaded banks to mimic the stepwell's evaporation control. Urban water harvesting projects are moving beyond simple collection tanks, instead creating multi-level underground cisterns that use the same passive cooling and natural filtration to maintain water quality without relying on energy-intensive treatment plants. The stepwell teaches a holistic lesson that water management is not just about storage, but about creating an entire system that works in harmony with local climate and geology. This ancient wisdom, carved into stone, reminds us that the most sustainable solutions often come from working with nature's own logic, not against it. That same reverence for harnessing a natural force with elegant, passive design finds its parallel in the way ancient cultures captured the wind. The same desert winds that shaped the dunes were once captured and tamed by the ingenious towers of ancient Persia. Rising from the rooftops of traditional homes, the badger or windcatcher was a simple yet brilliant instrument of climate control. Its tall, open vents faced the prevailing winds, scooping up the slightest breeze from high above the hot ground and funneling it down a central shaft directly into the living spaces below. But the true genius was in the duality of its function. As this cool, fresh air was pushed downward, it created a pressure difference that simultaneously pulled the warm, stale air inside the building up and out through other openings. This was a perfectly balanced, self-regulating ventilation system, providing a continuous flow of fresh, cooled air without a single moving part or any energy input whatsoever. In the intense heat of the Iranian plateau, these structures made life not just bearable but comfortable for centuries. Today, architects and engineers focused on creating zero-energy buildings are looking back to this ancient model with a newfound sense of urgency. Using powerful computer simulations known as computational fluid dynamics, they can create digital models of a wind catcher and watch exactly how air moves through it. These virtual wind tunnels confirm the profound aerodynamic intelligence of the Persian design, revealing how the shape of the tower and the internal channels optimize airflow and pressure differentials. This validated ancient knowledge is now being translated into modern architectural features. New buildings in suitable climates are incorporating updated versions of these towers, often integrated with solar chimneys to enhance the stack effect. The results are staggering, with some contemporary adaptations reducing the need for mechanical air conditioning by up to 90%. The Persian mastery of aerodynamics proves that some of our most sustainable solutions are not inventions, but rediscoveries. This ancient drive to harness natural forces for human comfort through elegant, passive design mirrors a different kind of ancient ingenuity, one that focused not on capturing the wind, but on capturing the very essence of human thought and preserving it for the ages. The legendary Library of Alexandria represented the ancient world's most ambitious attempt to conquer information overload. Its mission was not merely to collect every scroll in the known world, but to make that knowledge findable. A team of scholars, including the poet Callimachus, dedicated themselves to this monumental task, creating the Pinax, a massive catalog that functioned as the library's search engine. This was not a simple list of titles. It was a sophisticated classification system that organized works by genre and author, summarizing their content and providing critical commentary, much like the metadata tags and snippets in a modern search engine results page. The librarians were grappling with the same core challenge that Google's engineers face today: how to take a seemingly infinite collection of data and impose an order upon it that allows a user to quickly locate the single most relevant piece of information they seek. The Pinakes used a form of relevance ranking, placing the most important and authoritative texts first within their categories. This ancient drive for a comprehensive, organized universal library is the direct philosophical ancestor of the modern Internet's own ambition. Both systems confront identical pitfalls: the struggle to verify information quality, the constant battle against decay and loss, and the immense difficulty of designing a navigational structure that remains intuitive as the collection grows exponentially. The burning of the library was a catastrophic loss of data, a permanent deletion of cultural memory that today's digital archivists work tirelessly to prevent through distributed server farms and constant data migration. The central problem the Alexandrians identified has only magnified. The more knowledge we produce, the more brilliant we must become at organizing it. This ultimate challenge of managing human understanding brings us to the final, and perhaps most personal, connection between ancient ruins and the technology we use every day. The earliest clay tablets from Mesopotamia were dense with pictures, a direct sketch of an ox or a sheaf of grain. But over centuries, those detailed pictographs began to simplify, transforming into the distinctive wedge-shaped marks we call cuneiform. This was not merely a change in style, it was a revolution in information technology. Scribes were actively compressing data, trading detailed representations for a set of efficient, abstract symbols that could be combined to represent complex ideas, sounds, and grammatical structures. A single sign could now stand for a word, a syllable, or even a conceptual classifier, all depending on context. This evolution from a pictorial to a phonetic and semantic system dramatically increased the amount of information that could be stored on a single tablet, a necessity for running the sprawling bureaucracies of ancient empires. The very same drive to maximize information density powers our digital world today. Modern lossless data compression algorithms, like those that zip a file or encode a PNG image, operate on an eerily similar principle. They analyze data to find statistical patterns and redundancies, then replace common, lengthy sequences with much shorter symbolic codes. Just as a cuneiform scribe stopped drawing a whole ox and instead made a few quick wedges meaning ox, a compression algorithm stops storing every identical pixel in a blue sky and instead creates a tiny instruction that says repeat this blue for 1,000 pixels. The parallel is profound. Both systems move from a literal, bulky representation toward an abstract, efficient code that preserves the original meaning while using far less physical or digital space. Computational linguists now pore over cuneiform dictionaries not just as historians, but as engineers looking for time-tested solutions. They are fascinated by how the system maintained clarity and avoided ambiguity as it became more abstract, a critical challenge in modern day to transmission where a single corrupted bit can render a file useless. The logic embedded in these 4,000-year-old tablets could inspire new, more robust ways to encode digital information, making our files smaller, faster to transmit, and more resilient to errors. This ancient writing system reveals a fundamental truth. The human drive for informational efficiency is a constant, pushing us from marks in clay to codes in silicon. Having journeyed from solar calendars to data compression, these 22 connections force a startling realization. Our technological present is not a clean break from the past, but a continuous conversation with it. The principles of physics, logic, and human ingenuity that guided ancient builders are the very same ones that guide modern engineers. The next time you use your phone's GPS or feel a breeze from an efficient building vent, remember that you are experiencing an echo of a wisdom that is thousands of years old, a testament to the timeless nature of human innovation. These echoes from the past are far more than historical footnotes. In our current age of relentless technological acceleration, they serve as a crucial reminder that true innovation is not always about inventing something entirely new. More often, it is about rediscovering the profound principles that ancient civilizations understood and applied with intuitive genius. The stark separation we imagine between the ancient and the modern begins to dissolve when you recognize the consistent patterns of human problem-solving that stretch across millennia. We are still answering the same fundamental questions: how to shelter ourselves, how to manage resources, how to communicate, and how to understand our place in the cosmos. The solutions may be rendered in silicon instead of stone, but the underlying logic frequently remains. These historical parallels are not just fascinating curiosities. They are active, valuable sources of inspiration for sustainable solutions to our most pressing contemporary challenges. When we study how past civilizations achieved thermal comfort without electricity, built structures that last millennia, or managed complex data without digital storage, we are not looking backward with nostalgia. We are looking at a library of time-tested prototypes. This perspective forces us to reconsider our own technological choices, which often prioritize short-term performance over long-term resilience. The Roman concrete that heals itself challenges our acceptance of crumbling infrastructure. The Persian windcatchers that cool entire buildings question our dependence on energy-intensive air conditioning. By learning from these ancient models, we can begin to develop technologies that are not just smarter, but wiser, designs that work in harmony with natural forces rather than constantly fighting against them. This historical consciousness, this awareness of the long arc of ingenuity, might be the most important tool we have for creating a future that is not only advanced but also enduring. It prepares us to look at the legacy we are building today and ask a simple, powerful question: what will our ruins teach the civilizations that come after us? This journey through 22 connections reveals a profound and humbling truth. The human mind, whether working with stone or silicon, follows a remarkably consistent path. We face the same fundamental challenges: the need for shelter, for clean water, for accurate timekeeping, and for efficient communication. The solutions devised by ancient builders and modern engineers, while separated by millennia, are often elegant variations on the same physical and logical themes. We have not so much invented a new world as we have refined an ancient one, swapping granite blocks for carbon fiber and knotted ropes for fiber optics, all while applying the same core principles of physics and geometry. This pattern shatters the illusion of linear progress, replacing it with a more compelling vision of a spiral, where we continually circle back to rediscover and refine the profound insights of our ancestors. Their empirical genius, born from direct observation and necessity, frequently prefigured our own most sophisticated approaches. The ultimate lesson here is one of humility. It reminds us that true advancement is not always a frantic race toward the new, but sometimes a quiet conversation with the past, a process of remembering the timeless wisdom we once possessed. So the next time you hold your smartphone or walk through a modern city, try to see the echoes. See the Roman aqueduct in the water flowing from your tap, the Gothic buttress in the steel frame of a skyscraper, and the Inca solar calendar in the algorithms that optimize your home's energy use. These are not mere coincidences, they are the signature of a continuous, unbroken thread of human creativity. If this exploration has shifted your perspective on the ancient and the modern, we would love to hear what connection surprised you the most. Share your thoughts below and subscribe for more journeys into the hidden patterns that shape our world.